So today we'll be creating a farming RPG. So we'll create it like so. It's a 3D project. And we'll create. So while waiting, let's figure out the assets that we need. So what I do is that I go on Mixamo. Mixamo is basically a place where you can get your animations and models for free. So for here, I'll get a boy character that we'll be using for our game, and I'll download him. We also need a couple of animations as well. We need the walk. So when you download the walk animation, make sure it's in place. We don't need the skin. Just download it. When everything is done, go to your Unity project. We'll create a new folder. Let's call this imported assets. You can replace this with assets of your own, but I'll just do this. So we'll import each one. Let's create a new scene. We'll call it ranch. This will be where we'll be doing most of the things. And we'll bring in our character. This will be our player. As you can see, he doesn't have any textures. So what you can do to fix this is you click on the asset, go to materials, extract textures. Fix now. And you should see your model fully textured. Now onto the rigging. Go to the model again. Go to rig. So the animation type is humanoid. Avatar definition, create from this model. Click apply. And now we have a character that is rigged. We need to do the same for the animation files to get them working. So go to rig on your running animation, humanoid. Instead of create from this model, we'll copy the rig from this model. Do the same with walking. So this would be our player character, right? Create a new folder, call it prefabs. So this is our player character. Let's make a new animation for him. Create another folder, call it animation. First we need an animator controller. So let's create that. Create animator controller, call it player. Drag it in here. And now on our animator, we can see that there are no animations on it yet. Now let's go to our imported assets. Now there's the running and walking for the player. Let's make duplicates of the animation and rename it. This is running and this is walking. Let's bring this to the animation folder. running and walking animations. In the settings, set it to loop, set it to loop, and we can bring them, yeah. Oh, looks like we need an idle animation as well. So now we have 3 animations: idle, walking, and running. So by default, our player should be in its idle position. So we set this as layer default state. Make sure this is looped. So how do we control whether it switches to walking or running? We need parameters like speed and for whether it's running. So if the speed is below 0, is greater than 0.1, it would start walking. But when you stop pressing the key, the speed would be less than 0.1. And so you would stop walking. Now we just have to do this programmatically. So to do this, we need a character controller. Now we set the character controller properly. Make sure it fits his body nicely. Radius. I think 0.4 looks alright. And now time for the script. Let's create a new folder. Scripts. We'll create a new C# script called player controller. Drag it onto the player and edit it with Visual Studio. So as usual, we get our MonoBehavior class. Since we'll be working with the animator for this, we'll need the animator. Cache this as a variable. We also need a character controller. Let's call it controller. But just declaring these variables isn't going to help us. We need a way for Unity to know that it's talking about the components attached to this game object. So to do this, in our start function, this is for movement components. These are movement components. So we'll get this from the game object, and the animator from the game object as well. So now if you were to run this, nothing would happen because we haven't done anything yet. So let's get it working. So we'll be using the update function. First create a new function, call it move. And then we'll call it from the update function. So this runs the function that handles all movement. So we want our character to move when we press our WASD keys or the keyboard. So we can get our input names from edit, project settings, input manager. So input manager is where, and we'll be making use of the horizontal and vertical inputs. So to get them, we have to, in our movement function, represent them as horizontal and vertical values. So for example, if I were to press the D key, which is right, the value would be +1. If I don't press anything, it's 0. If I press A, it would be -1. So this way, we can use these values to determine the direction our player is facing. So you need to get the direction. So the normalized makes it into 1 unit with a magnitude of 1. So it doesn't really affect our speed too much. How do we tell if the player should be moving? So to check if there is movement, it's when the direction magnitude is greater than or equals to 0.1. So if this is the case, it should look towards that direction and move. So to look towards our direction, it's just to set the transform rotation. It's that simple. We can. So now if we were to test it, yeah, our character now looks at the direction of the key in which we press it. So this way we know that our direction is working. Let's make the camera better. Okay. So now we need our character to move. So how do we make our character move? We need to take this direction and multiply it with the speed. So to this end, let's declare our move speed. We'll make use of our velocity. Let's calculate velocity. So compute the move speed direction with time. And now we'll let the controller do its magic. Simply the move command, and then we'll set in the velocity, and voila, it should work. Our character now moves, but we want it to be playing its animation. So to do that, we will need to use the speed parameter and link it to its velocity. So we'll make a reference, set the float of the speed to its velocity value. So we set it to its magnitude because it only takes in a float value, which we can get from calculating the magnitude. And this way, okay, we just had to make it less sensitive. And now our character walks and stops, walk and stop, walk and stop. So the animations are playing correctly. So now that our character is able to walk, we need to make our character run. So this would be done if he were to hold the shift key. So let's make our character press the sprint key. First we'll create a, as you can see there's no sprint key here, so we have to add one more. Call it sprint. So now we need to check if the sprint key is pressed. So this, we use get button. Get button checks if it's if a certain button is getting held down. So we check if the sprint button is pressed, being pressed down. So if it is being pressed down, so we need to set the animation to run and increase our move speed. So how do we do that? Let's create a header, call it movement system. This is just for our reference in the inspector. So our walk speed shall be set to 4, and for now we'll set our running speed to 2 times of that. So if the sprint key is being pressed down, our move speed will be set to our running speed. And if not, we'll set the move speed to our walking speed. So now if you look at it in the inspector, we have our movement system. We can set our values here, running and walking. So we're going to play it now. If I hold shift, my character walks faster. If I do not hold shift, he walks normally. But you see, the running animation is not doing anything. And this we have to set it accordingly. So, how do we transition from walking to running? So we set it to run if the running parameter is true. There's no exit time. And you should stop running if the running boolean is set to false. Now we need it to reflect that. It's going to be set to true if it's sprinting. If it's not sprinting, it's going to be set to false. And there you have it. He walks, he runs. If you notice a bug, if he was to keep running, and I held the sprint key, and I let go of all the other keys, it'd still be running. So we have to fix that. So we need to add a transition to go back to idle. Speed is less than 0.01. Okay, it works. You just have to remove exit time. And it works perfectly now. Okay, that's it for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you at our next tutorial.